Here we have a 1978 American LaFrance Century model with an 8V71 Detroit diesel engine with 318 horsepower. It's got an HT 740 Allison automatic transmission and only 12,000 miles on the odometer. The pump is a 1,250 gallon per minute American LaFrance twin flow 2-stage pump with a 500 gallon stainless steel tank. This engine was originally purchased new by the Moundsville, West Virginia Fire Department. Moundsville ran only American LaFrance for their first motorized apparatus, all the way up to and including this 1978, which was the last ALF that they purchased. This 1978 was special ordered with a right-hand pump panel. This was the standard ALF pump panel on the right side until 1956, when they moved it to the left the following year. If you were a long-standing ALF customer, you could still order a right-hand pump panel after 1956, but very few were made. We're guessing less than 6. The current owner is Keith Thomas. He purchased it in 2015 from the Moundsville Fire Department, and the truck has the original paint. The only things that were added after he purchased it was a pre-pipe monitor and a Trident air primer. Let's cruise this piece of American Fire Service history down the road in Columbus, Ohio to go pick up Mike Daley while we're at Firehouse Expo. Hi, I'm Quinalty. Welcome back to another episode of Firefighters and Firefighters Getting Ice Cream. We're cruising through the city of Columbus today, out in Ohio, out at Firehouse Expo, and we're going to go pick up Mike Daley from Monroe Township in New Jersey. He's going to come along for some ice cream and help me out today, so we're going to see him here in a second, and stay tuned. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Jesse.
What's up, man?
How are you?
You like ice cream?
I love ice cream, man.
Well, luckily we have some. You can get whatever you want. It's all on me.
Sounds great.
We'll cruise around in this old 73 LaFrance and get ice cream and do our thing.
I like it. Gotta be one. Gotta be one.
Where's the siren break? There it is. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. How about
Yeah?
you?
Good.
Enjoying Columbus,
Good.
enjoying the Firehouse Expo. Had a great time. Had
Always a good show.
couple good classes. Did
I'm
a good rescue showcase for them as well. Everything went real well. It was really good.
Good. How many years have you been teaching at Firehouse now?
Oh boy, probably. I'm gonna say probably back from Baltimore in how many years? Probably the better part of close to 15 or 20.
Wow.
It's been a long time, yeah.
Yeah, I never got to teach when I was at Baltimore. I kind of got into it like right after that.
Yeah, Baltimore was a good city. You know, Firehouse is a great show no matter what city it's in, to be honest with you. But,
Right.
you know, and so
Good stuff.
between that and writing for Pete, you know, everything's been really good. They've been treating us really well.
Yeah, for sure.
You know.
Yeah, Pete's great.
Yeah.
As much as I miss Tim, Pete's great too.
Nah, Tim was a great guy too. Really was.
So, you started out on LaFrance pretty similar to this one?
Yeah, actually, my local department, when I first joined, started out at 69 LaFrance, manual steering. Yeah, and this was where you cut your teeth, man. This is where you learned to drive. This is how you did your thing, you know? And then I moved up to the 85 LaFrance, and then we went closed cab KME, and then moved to a different department when I became a career firefighter, and then you know, now it's Seagraves and E1s and Pierces and,
Right.
and you name it.
Yeah. Well, this definitely sounds like a real fire engine.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, sometimes you miss that throaty. It works out for us talking in the cab, but it definitely doesn't sound like a fire engine anymore.
Absolutely.
So when you said you started on the France, what department were you with at that time?
I was in Woodbridge.
Okay.
Yeah, District 7. Started out, my dad was a member there. It's just one of those things that, when I was a kid, I used to ride the calls with them. Back in the day, they used to be able to take their personal cars to the calls, when they had their pagers. And then,
right.
In the very early years, when my dad was home on the weekends, and there'd be a call, they had the old siren, and we lived around the corner from the firehouse. And when he went, I went when I was available. I got to watch a lot of stuff.
Right. Yeah, I remember those days of the paid call. I found the apartment right across the street from the station, so I could literally walk across the street, open the doors, and get on the rig.
Yeah,
my girlfriend hated living there, but I'm like, no, this is where we're living. I want to be the first one here.
It's funny. My dad was a member as long as I can remember. Growing up. And then there was so much family stuff around the fire station between the picnics, the kids' Christmas parties, and it was really a community-based kind of operation early, 30 years ago, when this all started for me. But even younger, about 40 years ago when I was a kid. And you just grew up with it. You just kind of knew it was part of your lifestyle. That's just how it worked. You didn't think about a time where the fire department or the fire service wasn't involved. Between my parents, my grandfather was a retired captain in Patterson. I have an uncle, a retired captain in Clifton. Another uncle retired out of Clifton, and I got a cousin right now on a job who's a captain on 3 truck in Patterson.
Wow.
So yeah, it's you know the deal. It's a family tradition.
Right. Yeah, I was the very first.
Oh, you really?
My family, yeah.
Wow.
So we'll see if I push my son enough that way. But basically, enough you talk about how it's like community and family based, and I think that now all my son sees is me getting forced hired at work all the time, and so maybe it might push him away from the career, but it's I still love it, whether he goes into it or not.
Well, I have a 14-year-old who is going to make his own decisions, and whatever it is, as parents, we support whatever our kids decide to do. He had illusions of being a firefighter when he was younger. He was 4 years old. He had a full outfit. We went trick-or-treat, and I wore my turnout gear. He wore his. So I still have that picture sitting on my locker in my office,
right.
10 years ago. But what he does, as long as he's happy, that's all that matters.
How many kids do you have total?
Just one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just one.
Well, that makes it a lot easier, because then if they say, well, you stop touching me, then there's something wrong. It's only one of them.
Yeah, right.
There was actually, I looked at, I think it was a podcast, you talked about 50-50 being a dad and being a firefighter.
Yeah, Dr. Donnie Hutchinson, was on. It's an unfortunate part of fire service when it comes to divorce. Nobody gets into it to get divorced.
Right.
And, I got divorced when my son was 5. And from that time, I knew I was going to be a full-time dad no matter what, even though I'm a 50-50 dad, and, but when it comes to him, he's the priority, he's got a football game tomorrow, which is why I'm heading home to watch his game tomorrow,
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing that literally in the fire service, we have a term called practice wife. First one figures out if they can handle it or not, but it shouldn't be that way.
No, and you make a choice, and when I was on the podcast, I revealed the fact that I turned down the chief's job when my son was young. He was only 18 months old. So I wanted to be a father. I wanted to be a father more, and I wanted to be the fire chief.
Right.
And it's a decision I don't regret. It's probably a decision that will probably end my illusions of wearing, a gold horn or crossed horns, and that's okay. I mean,
right.
The fact that I was the #1 candidate at one time over everybody else in the department and everybody else who submitted. All right, okay, and you know what? So I guess if you look at it from a point of, could you do it? Well, apparently everybody else thought I could at the time, but and timing is everything. That's just what it is, So
That's
no
pretty
regrets.
that's pretty amazing too. Like every time everybody talks about like, Well, when do you know when it's time to promote? It's when you have other people coming to you and saying, hey, it's time to take the lieutenant test, or hey, it's time to take the battalion chief test, or whatever. And I think those are huge milestones when you're getting that buy-in from everybody else.
Yeah, I would agree.
So what did you teach at Firehouse this week?
Well, I worked with the rescue showcase on the floor. We got to talk with half a dozen vendors with some really good new tools that are coming out. We got to see Hurst's new lightweight 3.0 spreaders and cutters. We got to see some of their stabilization struts. We had Homatro there with a lightweight battery-powered spreader that, you know, we advocate for confined space. I had some atmospheric monitoring people there with Supervac. Andy Schaefer was there with Supervac.
Right.
We had Tom Anderson from Insight Training with thermal imaging for Tech Search. We had some new updated rope systems from MES. We had some great vendors there. It really came out and supported. It was really good. And then
you're on a USAR task force, right?
Yeah, I'm a rescue officer with Jersey Task Force 1. Yeah.
And you used to teach at Firehouse like a lot of extrication. Like that was originally like your bread and butter, right?
Yeah. Yesterday we did a class on really the rules of engagement today with new NFPA 1700 rules coming out. How we define decision making on the fire ground, and we're trying to include the science with the strategy and tactic end of it, and understand why officers, at least first due officers, are making the decisions, or why they should be making the decisions that they are, based on the scientific data. You know, I do a lot of work with Kill the Flashover. We do a lot of fire behavior studies and research. We've done our own data. It mimics a lot of what the UL is doing.
Right.
We push a lot of it out. We've actually started to develop Fire Behavior University, which is going to be a full-year program that we're hoping is going to get credit for college degrees.
Yeah, KTF is doing some amazing stuff out there. Like, I was supposed to take it to the online university this last time. Jack McGovern was trying to like rope me into it, and I had a bunch of other stuff going on. I'm like, Jack, I can't handle another thing on my plate, but I told him next time I'll try to get in there.
Well, Jack is the vice president right now, and I'm the president, so
okay.
We're putting together a full year program. It's going to go up and running in February again, so you know, we're going to spread it out a little more to make it a little easier on the time commitment. So we're going to include a lot of decision making on the back half of it, and we're hoping to finish it up with a live burn hypothesis test at the end of 2022.
So when you did this last one, it was kind of a trial one, right? That was the first time you guys have done the online?
No, actually it wasn't a trial. It was the program as we developed, but when we were running it, we really kind of saw a need to put the what information out, which is what the first round is. Part 2 is going to be the why. Well, why is the science important?
Right.
Why is it so important to understand compartment fire behavior and what it is that the fuel is doing, and why air track management is as important as it is? And then we're going to finish it up in part 3 with the burn as to how to make the application. So everybody that finishes the first 2 parts are going to be invited to come down for the third part for a week. We're actually going to set up a building. We're going to develop a few hypotheses. I went through the program. I've gotten my craftsman accreditation. I had to develop a hypothesis and try to prove it or disprove it.
Right.
And I was fortunate. I was able to prove mine. But you know, we talk about it. And Joe Starnes who was really one of the founding members of a bunch of really smart guys. Tells us all the time, best chart wins. Show me the data. If the data proves it, I mean, it's hard to argue with the numbers. It's hard to argue with the facts. And you know, trying to get the fire service to understand that I'm not trying to tell anybody how to do your job different or not go in and do your job. We're just trying to get you to do it safer and smarter. That's really all we're trying to do.
Right. Now, when you bring up the open concept construction, the newest article that I'm doing for Firehouse right now is called Tearing Down the Walls. And we look at over 50% of your residential structure fires are caused by cooking, and that's where those walls are coming out. So now you're talking about changing flow path when they open up that front door, it leads directly to that kitchen. Change in tactics as far as, am I going to the front door? Am I doing transitional? And a lot of these new homes, we did some multi-company drills not too long ago with that kind of open concept fire tactics. The new homes are being built where the parents' bedroom is on one side of that and the children's bedroom's on the other side of that.
Yeah, we're seeing that too.
Which is going to lead to more rescue potential, parents screaming when we show up, VIS options, and I mean, it's a big game changer. The last multi-company drill, we had a role player out there screaming, my 4-year-old, you know, because I think there's going to be a lot more of that.
Well, you know, we have three things that influence compartment fire behavior. The actual construction and makeup of the compartment, the air track involved in the compartment, and the fuel, the heat release rate. And now that we're making compartments bigger, we're making them out of different material, we're making them so that they reflect a lot more energy. They're being made with a whole lot more fuel. We still have a lot more air that's in the building. You know, we have in our first new response area a lot of houses that are 5,000 square feet and above. Right. And the reality of it is, unfortunately, there's enough fresh air in that compartment to take that to lean flashover without even opening a door. So when we talk about attack from the front or from the back, we still have to worry about what's going on in the back, because lots of the times we're not as clean a burn in the back, and we have what we call the plug. You have so much fuel, so much heat, and if we're not ready with a line, you're going to get ignition, and you're going to get a surprise.
Yeah. Well, the other one too is like not even just open up the walls in the kitchen, but like the master bathroom and the master bedroom, right? You used to have that potential where I knew that I was going to go to the bathtub and look in the bathtub. Well, now there's no door to protect those occupants running to the bathroom most of the time. So I think that it's a big game changer for us. The light truss, I mean, the collapse potential is there and all that, but new generation of firefighters, I tell them, like, look, the truss stuff is leading to this open concept, and that's the biggest change for you coming up in the fire service right now.
Well, you know, you think compartmentation with the open concept, even we're talking about kids keeping their doors shut. I can't tell you how many Jack and Jill bathrooms I have where one leads from one bedroom to another. And, you know, we're taking trusses and throwing lightweight hybrid construction in. We're talking laminated timbers that don't burn like, you know, like saw and dimensional timber. You know, it's a real game changer. It really is.
Yeah. So when you guys were doing all the stuff with KTF, the online program, how many weeks was it when you did that last one?
We did it. It was about 10 weeks. Started in February. There was some introduction to the actual concept of fire behavior. There's a lot of science to it. Each student had to build a burn house, come up with a lesson plan, show a flow path hypothesis with it, and deliver that material to somebody in their department. And then there was a paper that we did too to reference a line of duty incident that was directly related to thermal insult or products of combustion. And they were really responsible to dissect that. And we're not trying to find fault, believe me. I don't believe in being a Monday morning quarterback on anybody's fire. I hated it when they did it to me, and it's really, you're not there, you really don't know. But we really want to look at it from a scientific standpoint only. What did we see? What do we have? What exactly behavior led to it, and what can we do to stop it in the future? And that's really what it was about. It's not finding blame or finding fault or fixing responsibility to anybody in particular. Right. Look, here's what happened. Here's why combustion did it the way it did, and let's all learn from that. And, you know, we've gotten some really good information back, got some feedback, and, you know, a lot of eye-opening facts for our students.
Well, I think as the fire service as a whole, we're starting to transition to that new view model of investigation of a fatality or an accident. You know, Frank didn't show up to work that day saying, "Hey, I'm gonna put my crew in danger," or "I'm gonna push the wrong medication." You know, so where does it go back to? Is it culture? Is it SOPs? Is it equipment failures? And, you know, obviously there's definitely some human factors that go into it, but I think we're just now starting to get to the point where we're not only looking at, well, it's just because they screwed up. And that's a good thing for us to start looking at those, like you said, scientifically and with all the facts.
Well, you know, there's two parts that jump out at the problem here. One is definitely a hit on the head culture. The reality of this is This is a dynamically changing profession. I don't care if you're a career or volunteer. You jumped into this, you put turnout gear on, you got my vote as far as I'm concerned. But you also have to understand that as things change, you must change with it. Listen, I've been doing this 34 years, career and volunteer. I took classes while I was out here, even though I was teaching. You still have something to learn.
Is really loud.
You know, the other focus needs to be on the science of this job. It is a hands-on, blue-collar line of work. I agree, without question. And I don't care how high you promote up. The bottom line is you're still a firefighter, and you still have to understand the basics of combustion. And the reality of it is that the basics of combustion really hasn't changed. It's the application that we've had that worked 30 years ago when we got into fire service, that changed to 20 years ago with changes in construction that we're highlighting. The reality of it is combustion is as combustion does. We've unfortunately constructed ourselves into a position where compartment fire behavior has changed dramatically, as the UL has even proven. The question now is, how do we get buy-in in the department? And when we have members in the department that are the better parts of a quarter of a century that said, well, you know, I said this in my class the other day, you know, I always hear about the guys and the gals who were running fires. You know what, nobody got hurt, you know, everybody went home. Everybody went home is a great thing. The house burned down. You realize you would have had the same exact result if you didn't show up.
Right. Sorry. Well, basically is not only are we changing rapidly and we're learning new things, but I think the other fun one to watch is how we're relearning old stuff that we forgot lately. How to do forcible entry, or how to even just pull hose into a house. Like, we forgot that lost art, and we're literally like, you know, Aaron Fields and all these guys, like how to pull hose back into a structure again.
And you know, I still teach at the academy level. I still teach recruit classes, and it's those basic skills that we do over and over that seem repetitive to the recruit. But the baseline is, if you can't get a hand line into place quickly and with enough stream reach to be able to have an influential change in fire dynamics heading into the compartment, then you're in for a long afternoon. It's just that simple. Yeah. And you know, and we've been guilty of it, you know, at the instructor level. You know, and I hate, you know, come on, I'm part of the instructor community as well, and I'll take as much blame as anybody else. But I can remember a time of being able to bring a student into a burning room. He comes down a hot hallway, and instructors, don't full water till you see fire. Right. Well, now with the advances in thermal imaging, we know we should be throwing water and moving in as we go. Yeah. Or the instructors that insist on, oh wait, we'll get the student in a room, but don't let them flow water yet. I want to get it hotter. Listen, this is not about heat. This is about skill.
And then that's leading to what kind of slide tray do they have if they're not putting water on the fire when they're supposed to be.
And you know, the other cultural problem is we'll get the recruit in school and we'll talk about all the new science, and we'll talk about the theories of combustion that we're all finding that is really influencing the decisions we make, and the survivability profiling influence between compartmentation and location isolation and elevation of victims where they can possibly be. And then they go back to their department, and the senior guy or the boss or the officer says, okay, that was good at the academy, we're going to show you how to really do it. Right. Okay.
We just made a change for our probationary firefighter testing, that instead of when they get to their 6th month and the 11th month, we would send them down to the training center to do all of their evolutions. Now we actually, the engine company that they're assigned to with their captain and engineer, we send the entire crew down there, and they have to go through the evolutions with them, so we make sure that they're actually doing stuff the way they're supposed to be as far as our SOPs and training standards, and it holds the company accountable for it as well, and retrains them.
Well, you know, that's a pretty progressive move. That's pretty impressive. Not only that, it helps the newer member become part of the team that is already existing. And it builds a little bit of esprit de corps, if you will, kind of puts them all together, knowing that they can count on each other. That's pretty smart.
So you're the president of KTF. How many instructors in that do you have total?
We have 12 board of directors. We're moving. We have, I think, 8 master craftsmen. We have 6 craftsmen. We have some that are going through the craftsman program right now. We just graduated 35 in this last Fire Behavior University. So we're going to hope they're going to be signing up for part 2 next year. And instructor-wise, if you're a board of director, you teach. So we got some really smart people. We got Chief Whitley, who's doing a lot of the science end of it. We have Chief Starnes doing thermal imaging. I'm doing some of the compartment fire behavior and the strategy and tactics end of it. We're taking Chief Dixon in to do a little bit more of the application on scene. We got a lot of really great people. So much talent. The one thing I think we all agreed on is when we got together to do this, we were all pretty humble. You know how it is when you find yourself around a bunch of really, really talented, influential people, and you walk in thinking, I'm a pretty smart guy, and then you start sitting and listening to everybody else, and you go, you know what? Chief Anthony DeVillo calls that unconscious incompetence. Man, I didn't know how much I really didn't know until I started hanging around with people smarter than I did.
Well, that's the best thing about conferences like this, like
oh yeah.
You can go and hang out with guys like you, and Andy's knowledge of thermal imaging camera. I'm still a point and shoot guy, as far as I'm concerned. So, you got to get out there. Like you said, there's so much stuff, and as you grow through the fire service, you're exactly right. I get to the point where you can become unconsciously incompetent. It's very easy to be in that space.
I think the training-wise in the fire service is just going through a general malaise. It's just there's no drive. There's, I take my guys out training building construction tours. Usually right after lunch, right when everybody wants to have a nap. We're having so much construction in our area. It's like not knowing the playbook and showing up to play a game of organized sports. And your coach would never do that when you did that. So why not know the plays and the rules before you get there?
Right.
And it doesn't have to be fancy.
You just got to get out and train. When it all comes down to it, we all talk about everybody's putting in at least 2 hours of training a day. We know that's not always the case. One of the big things as a company officer, I always say, look, from 9:30 to 11:30, we're hitting the streets. We're going to go out and throw ladders, or we're going to go pull hose, or we're going to train on something. And that's my time. I know that's usually when call volume is going to be lower in a busy house that I'm at.
And that makes sense.
And it's we're going to try to get it done. After that, get the chores done, go do your workout, whatever else you want to do. But I'm going to take that time once the rigs are checked. We're going to go out and hit the streets.
Well, I'm the training officer of my department as well, and I put out a memo for monthly training, SOGs, directives, skills. All of it has to be covered. I tell everybody, every officer that does training, listen, you get them for 2 hours a day. You pick the 2 hours, whatever hours you want.
Right.
However it works out on your shift based on how crazy busy things get or don't get or whatever. But, make sure you're doing something. And it can be something as simple as taking a magazine, putting it on the table in front of everybody, and saying, hey, let's talk about this photo of this fire that they had in this single-story wood frame Type 5 wood pitch. How would you have done this? What do you think about this? What do you see from the front? It could be something just as simple as that, and it should be. It really should be.
The streets just got really tight. I probably could have made it down that one. I'd be setting off all kinds of car alarms for how loud this thing is going down here.
I think it was 12 midnight instead of 12 noon, they'd be more upset. So I think we're going to get a pass on that either way.
So the other class that you taught out here at Firehouse was first due.
Yeah.
What's some of the stuff that you hit topic-wise as far as that first thing captain arriving or the first officer arriving?
You know, the big part of it is, I think, it's the communication and decision making when you first arrive, and that is a lost art. It really is. You know, getting out, and I do too. I do a windshield size up when I first arrive, and I'm going to give you some important parts. I tell you who's in charge. If I'm in charge, okay, great. We're establishing command. What's the building? Tell me what it is. What type of construction? What's the roof pitch? Is it flat? Does the truck need to know that? Right. What do I see when I first arrive? Nothing evident? I never say nothing showing. Nothing evident? Okay, nothing evident from the front. And what we're out doing about it, stretching the line, going defensive, investigating. And incoming resource report. Resources proceed in. Go non-emergency. Strike another alarm. And then I finish up with prepare for further size up, because I got to still do my 360. Right, I still got to walk around the building. You know, and everybody's about, well, what do we do first? What do we put a line on a fire? Well, that's not always the case. Right. So I have smoke showing, a little bit of flame showing from the window on a first story, wood frame, single story with pitch type 5. I do my 360 and Mrs. Smith's hanging out the kitchen window. Okay, well, in that first new engine company that might have 3 or 4 firefighters on it, now went from suppression is not my first responsibility. I better pull Mrs. Smith out of that window, and then we'll worry about salvaging property. But if it's all about saving lives, you got to get out and you got to do your size up. You got to get out and do your 360, because what's happening in the back of the building might take priority over what's going on in the front. Right. You know, we dove into the science a little bit, and even about the turnout gear and the equipment used, and what the heat, the energy is going to do to the equipment we're using, and you know, talking about thermal protective performance for the gear that people are wearing. It's just always amazing to me when I ask them, okay, at what temperature does your skin begin to burn, or what temperature does your turnout gear begin to char? Right. What temperature does your hose fail? What temperature does your radio internal components start to fade? And nobody knows that question. And I always end up these questions with, what do I cook chocolate chip cookies at? And I get a room full of people that yell 350 degrees, and it's amazing to me that all these firefighters know how to bake cookies, but we're wearing all these layers of protection, but we don't know what temperature we really need to push our luck with. Right. It's a cultural thing, like I said. We really have, don't get me wrong, I'm not against cookies, but the reality of it is, if we're really going to do this job, let's do it correctly.
Well, I know you're not against cookies. Are you up for ice cream?
Absolutely, sign me up.
All right, let's do it.
78.